Hi, this is Scott Kilos here, 6 Delta Alpha Yankee, and we're back once again talking about speaker mics. I decided the first group of speaker mics that I wanted to talk about are the ones that feature the K plug. And the reason for that is it's going to answer the largest number of questions first, because in terms of radios out there currently in the wild, the greater majority of them use K plugs than anything else. So I thought I'd launch into those first. And for today, and before I move on, let me first talk about what I mean by K plug, and we'll describe this by actually looking at a Kenwood speaker mic, because when you hear the term K plug, what we're talking about is a Kenwood K1 plug. There are other Kenwood K-type plugs. There's a K2, which is very different from this, and I believe there's also a K3. But the K1 plug is this plug that features a 3.5 millimeter pin and a 2.5 millimeter pin spaced in this particular arrangement. There are other plugs that look like this. For instance, ICOM has a plug that looks a lot like this, but it's different in terms of the spacing. And there's also the Motorola M plug, which has this same 2-pin arrangement, and the spacing is different on those as well. They look the same, but they're not the same. But for some reason, the Chinese radio companies, when they started incorporating speaker mic plug arrangements into the radios, they chose, for whatever reason, the K plug arrangement. The Baofeng UV5R, for instance, is pretty famous for that. It uses the K plug. And then some other radios, and the term cheap Chinese radio is actually not a term I like to use, because there are Chinese radios out there that are certainly not cheap, and this is one of those. The Ocean KG-UV9 Papa, this also uses a K plug, and so does the KG935 Golf. Both of those are K plug types. And then definitely Chinese, but by no means cheap at all, because this is actually a fairly expensive radio. The AnyTone ATD878UV also uses a K plug for its speaker mic. So there's a lot of these radios out there that people are interested in speaker mics for, so thus that's why I'm jumping into the K plug as the first group to look at. Also, I will mention, these are by no means the only speaker mics that are available for that plug arrangement out there. There's a lot of speaker mics out there in the market. Some of them are just variations and iterations of the same thing, such as these two here. But there are some other models that I don't currently have in my I'm not going to say collection, in my inventory, I guess. These are the ones that I tend to use, not necessarily these, but these three here, or versions of them. There are other companies such as Prime, Abri, and a few others that I do have some speaker mics coming for those. So when they come in, we'll take a look at those individually. But I think in the end, I'm going to give you a couple of options that should pretty much appeal for now across the board. And I really don't envision any of those other speaker mics that I've talked about knocking off my #1 choice anyway. But so before we get into these three, I want to first talk about this Baofeng type speaker mic. Now, I mentioned in the last video how these were the same speaker mic, and they essentially are. There's some minor little styling differences. If you're familiar with Baofeng, you'll be familiar with the fact that they'll have radios that are pretty much identical, and they only differ in the case on the outside. The speaker grill may be different, or the edges or corners of it may be different. They make minor little stylistic changes. Retevis does this a lot. Like, there's some Retevis and TYT radios out there that are the same radio with just slightly different cases. And I think we've got the same thing going on here, because we have the same basic shape, but there are some differences. The speaker grill on the 10-way is a little different than the Baofeng, but the general shape is the same. The thickness is the same. The PTTs are the same, but there are a couple of little differences. The cords are essentially the same. The strain reliefs are identical. So I'm going to guess these came out of the same factory at some point. Ocean, for instance, has a speaker mic that looks identical to the Baofeng one, just says Ocean at the top. But what these are speaker mics that, while they are useful for recreational purposes, these are not speaker mics that one should take seriously on any level. The type of gear that we talk about here, whether it's the radios or the support equipment, is all focused on radios and support equipment that are used in harsh outdoor environments. Things like MCOM, things like hiking, things like hunting, things like undercover good guy stuff, crawling around in the woods and going outside and banging around with your gear. this isn't the kind of equipment you want to use for that, unless you're talking like airsoft or something where, you know, again, there's not any consequences. Just as with recreational radio use, there's really no consequences other than you might get embarrassed at some point if you have bad signal quality. But if you're talking about a radio and a speaker mic, for instance, you take your $27 radio and you hook your, because these are two for $10.99, so effectively $5.50 speaker mic, plug that into your $27 radio. Again, if you're using it to check in on nets, using it to talk to people around town, go for it, more power to you. Don't care. But if it's a situation where you're taking this on a search and rescue thing, you're taking this on a hike in the backcountry, and you're taking this so that you can summon aid in the event you get injured, this is not the equipment you want to take with you. This is not equipment that's going to survive the event, okay? It's not meant to be durable. It's not meant to stand up to the weather. And like I said, it's a radio and it's a speaker mic. It's not a very good radio, nor is it a very good speaker mic, and it's not something that I recommend. That's just reality. Some people don't like hearing that. I'm sorry, I don't care. Get over it. So when it comes to these, like I said, if you're looking for a recreational mic, okay, fine. Audio quality, and at the end of this video, I am going to show you some footage of some tests that I ran earlier today where I filmed both the receive audio coming from the speaker mic and also the speaker mic receiving, so that you can see how these things sound on both ends. And in terms of how this particular speaker mic sounds, it's not bad. It's not bad at all, really. But like I said, how long is that going to last in a harsh environment? That's the concern that I have. One other little side note real quick about taking these radios seriously. This UV5R, you've probably seen this before in one video or another that I've done where I've talked about Baofengs. This is a fairly recent purchase. It came to me via UPS, and once it got to my home, it's actually never been outside. I tested the radio when I programmed the frequencies in, and it worked at the time. But earlier today, what I wanted to do was, while I was filming the receive quality or the signal report from the speaker mic, I first wanted to see how the radio sounded without a speaker mic plugged in. So I keyed down and went to transmit, and I got nothing. It sent a carrier. I got like a hum that came through on the other end, but it passed no audio traffic at all. No words were heard. How about that? So the PTT on this thing, there's something wrong with it, and it's brand new. It's never really been used hardly at all. Like I say, I programmed it, checked it when I programmed the frequencies in, and then just the act of sitting on a shelf managed to kill it. So don't take these radios seriously. They're not meant to be taken seriously. Some people do, though, and it's frightening how seriously they take them, actually. So getting back to the speaker mic, looking at this, the feel, the cord, let's talk about the cord for just a second. Looking at the strain relief at the base of the microphone, this is kind of not really a strain relief, it's a suggestion of a strain relief. If you're talking about strain relief, that's a strain relief right there. That is a strain relief at the bottom of the microphone. That is one hell of a strain relief there. This, not so much. So again, for $5.50, what do you expect, right? So very cheap in terms of the cord. Not really going to fill you with a load of confidence there. The speaker body itself feels very light, very hollow. The clip, there's some detents here. They're not really detents, they're suggestions of detents. It has a fairly short clip, but it is narrow enough that it'll fit through, for instance, a gap in your molly if you want to hang your speaker mic from there, but I don't know how long it's going to stay there. The clip is pretty flimsy. The switchery is okay, kind of clunky, and that actually carries through in the audio, by the way, the noise that it makes. You hear a big bunk every time it goes through and you release. But again, the audio report is not half bad on either end, so it works. I'll give it that. At least that works. If the UV5R itself won't. But as far as these things go, whether it's Baofeng or whether it's a 10-way that's an OEM marked Baofeng mic or the Ocean version of this, these little cheapies, I don't recommend. I really don't. Unless, again, we're talking about purely recreational use of radio. Now let's talk about getting into some stuff that's a little bit more serious. Now, the first one I want to get out of the way is the one that most people are going to think is going to be the best speaker mic on the table, and that's the Kenwood at the middle here. This Kenwood is a, let me look at the spec here, it's a KMC 45 Delta. So what this is the mil-spec version of this speaker mic. The speaker mic itself, the cost on it is $83. So it's an expensive speaker mic. It has some pretty good pedigree listed in the specifications. For instance, it's mil standard 810 ruggedized, so it's shock resistant. It'll resist dust intrusion. It's IP54 rain resistant. So it's made for outdoor use. It's heavy duty in every respect. Just looking again at that strain relief, the build quality of the microphone, it's got a good solid feel to it. The cord, it's got the heaviest duty cord of anything on the table. It's plenty long enough. Maybe verging on slightly too long depending on your application. The cord build is excellent. Like I say, the quality across the board is really good on this. So I had high expectations coming into this. Now I will tell you, and you'll see this in the audio testing that I do later, this has the best signal report on send. So the microphone on this is excellent. The quality of the signal quality is superb and better than any of the speaker microphones I'm looking at today. The receive audio, though, is actually the worst of the group. The Baofeng is actually louder and clearer than this speaker. It's low. It's very thin. It's not terrific. Now, you may say to yourself, well, that's not a problem because I'm going to run this into like a headset with a patch cord, or I'm going to use something like my audio tube earpiece with it. So I don't really care about the speaker. I just need a speaker mic that's super rugged and has an excellent microphone, and the audio quality, I'll make up for that with this here. Well, here comes the bad news. Unlike every other speaker mic out there, and when I say that, I mean that, every other speaker mic I have ever encountered, the earpiece, or I'm trying to remember what, I think they just call it the earplug or whatever it is, the accessory port for your earpiece at the bottom. Every other speaker mic out there is a 3.5 millimeter standard plug. Try finding a set of earbuds or an earpiece that isn't a 3.5 millimeter plug. They're all 3.5 millimeter plugs. For some weird, wild, and wacky reason, this Kenwood is a 2.5 millimeter. So none of my earpieces will work with this. None of them will, well, here, try to get that, it will not go in. Now, I was kind of wondering how this was going to sort itself out, because when I was reading the reviews on Amazon, one of the things that a few people brought up was that they had read that it was 2.5 millimeter, but what they got actually was one that was 3.5 millimeter. I don't know what they bought, because this one does indeed have a 2.5 millimeter plug on the bottom. So that kind of creates a situation for me. I could live with, and I could gladly live with the other features of this if it had that 3.5 millimeter plug on the bottom, because if I'm running a speaker mic, a lot of times I'm running this audio ear tube kit with it. So that's a problem. But you say, well, okay, I'm going to use it for something else. I'm going to use it for straight up search and rescue, where you want to be making all the noise you can possibly make. So if that's the case, terrific. But then the problem is the actual speaker is kind of crap. So I can't really recommend the Kenwood speaker mic. I don't think it's all that good, just because of those two problems. Another little minor issue, while the clip is probably the most rugged of any I've ever encountered on a speaker mic, and it's got good solid detents, this is a little too wide to effectively get in and out of a channel of MOLLE webbing, and that's where a lot of people hang their speaker mics from, is a piece of MOLLE up on the upper chest or up on the shoulder straps. And this is kind of a pain to get it in and out there. It's just wide enough and just thick enough to be problematic. So that's an additional issue. So I'm kind of ambivalent on the Kenwood. Not that thrilled. But hey, I waste my money so you don't have to. So there you know. So kind of I'm not giving a real rating or anything, not stars and numbers or anything, but yeah, I won't buy another one of these, and I probably won't use this. It'll go in the box with a bunch of other gear that I don't use anymore. So now we're down to these two here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I will tell you, straight up, one of these is good to go for all circumstances, and the other one there's some exceptions. The AnyTone speaker mic. Now, when we talk about AnyTone, if you're familiar with the ATD878UV, one thing this is known for, the speaker grade here, as you can tell, is just a couple of little holes, and one would think, man, you're not going to be able to hear any audio out of that at all. I don't know how they do it, but this is the loudest HT I own. It is amazing how loud this actually is. And I was kind of excited when I got the AnyTone speaker mic because it sort of follows that same form factor with the little grates here, but it is a more conventional size speaker grate. But I thought, well, if the speaker in this is as good as this, I'm going to be a happy man. It's kind of as good. Of all the speaker mics I have, this is the loudest, and it has excellent audio quality. It's got just enough bass that you can turn it up and it doesn't hurt your ears. Sometimes you get a speaker mic and you crank that sucker up nice and loud, but it's so thin and it's so much treble in it that it's uncomfortable to listen to. Not the case with the AnyTone speaker mic. This thing sounds excellent. The audio quality on transmit is pretty good. It's, how about we say it's kind of in the middle. It's not exceptional, but it's not bad. It's good to go. How about that? The cord is a little different than any other speaker mic I have. The thickness of the cord, as you can tell, comparing it to both the Commountain and the Kenwood, the cord itself is a little thinner. It's not as springy. It's also fairly long. So, hold on just a second, I'm going to cough. Apologize for that, getting a little dry throat. It's not bad. It's a little on the long side for my purposes, but it's okay. The quality of the strain reliefs, very good. The port at the bottom, of course, 3.5 millimeter plug, so I have no complaints there. I like the plug. It's a little different than other people use. Some people use just a little flap, and it's kind of difficult to get that back in there. And once open, it's kind of in the way. In fact, a lot of my older Commountain speaker mics, the way this opens, when you put that earpiece plug in there, this kind of has to be folded out of the way. When you've done it a few times, this thing finally just breaks off and falls away. I like what they did here, where it's just kind of hangs down and gives you a good, clear access point for plugging in your earpiece. So that's a positive. So all the way across the board, one of my favorite speaker mics to use. Loud, clear, excellent audio quality. The quality of the switch, very good. The belt clip, again, rotates like the rest of them, a little on the wide side, and this too is problematic with Molly. I generally, and what I'll do, I'll show a tip later on something you can do with a piece of paracord to just make that not a problem. So this is not the problem you think it is, but it's a good heavy-duty clip. I'm not too worried about this thing coming off or going away on me. The only downside this has is there is no stated weather protection on this speaker mic. It is not IP54. It's got a good rugged build, and I have every reason to believe that, you know, we're not going to get any water intrusion through the top, but you're going to get water in through those the speaker holes there, and that's going to kill it in short order in a heavy downpour. So as an outdoor mic, it's got issues. Now you can solve that as simply as taking a Ziploc bag with you, and you can, and you should have those in your kit anyway to waterproof gear that isn't otherwise waterproofed. But from a strictly recreational standpoint, this is my favorite speaker mic. When I go on trips, the radio I tend to take with me is this ATD878UV, and this is the speaker mic that goes with me. So I use this one a heck of a lot. So I've got a lot of experience with it, and I love it. I just wish it was IP54. Now let's get down to the very last one. And this brings back an old friend of the family here. For as long as I've been talking about radios on YouTube, I've been talking about Commountain speaker mics. Now, it used to be this Commountain speaker mic. Let me fix this real quick. Yeah, I'll just let it hang. I used these for a long time, not IP54, not even particularly all that good, very thin audio quality out of it, but they were solid and they worked. And that's what I liked about them the most. But they don't make this anymore. In fact, they sort of fell off the face of the earth for a while, and then they came back with this as their speaker mic. And this is kind of a copy of a Motorola speaker mic that a lot of you have probably dealt with at one time or another. It looks almost exactly like the speaker mic that was attached to my HT1000 when I worked for the county. And I like those speaker mics. This is solid, excellent all the way around. So let me go over the features on this real quick. Cord Kevlar reinforced. Strain relief, as you can see, pretty darn good on both ends, pretty solid. The actual body of the mic, good solid feel to it. It has the switch. One thing I like about this, the switch has a little bit more travel than the rest of them. You got to really kind of give it a good press. It's not difficult, but like I say, it's not the kind of speaker mic PTT that you're going to inadvertently bump and be transmitting. The clip, interesting little party piece on the clip is it's removable. It's got this little piece here, and it can pop right off. And I'm trying to figure out what I might do with that. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But the clip itself is very solid, very heavy duty, just as heavy duty as the one on the Kenwood. Good solid detents on rotating. Again, wide on the clip itself and plenty thick, so it's going to have the same issues in terms of moly, but I'll show you that trick later. Not that much of a deal breaker there. The accessory port is in a different spot. Most of these, in fact all of them, have all been at the bottom. This one is kind of at the side right here. I don't know 100% how I feel about that. I do kind of prefer it being on the bottom. There's less chance of rain getting in there if that's the case. But I will also tell you, I tend to actually run my speaker mic sideways on my carrier, just like that. So in essence, it ends up on the bottom anyway. So I'm not going to call that a downside, but it is a 3.5 millimeter plug, and it does have a gasket on it. I don't know if you can see that there, but there is a rubber gasket right there. So that's kind of helpful and goes towards something I'm going to show you right here, and that's at number IP54. This is a weather-resistant speaker mic. Now, here comes the really good part. The audio quality on this. I told you the best of the bunch is the AnyTone, and it is, but right close behind it is this Commountain. The speaker on this is superb, just as with the AnyTone. It's got a decent amount of bass to it, so you can turn it up loud and it doesn't aggravate your ears. The signal quality is much like the AnyTone, kind of middle of the road. It's good. I have no objections to it. I really can't tell the difference between these two speaker mics in terms of that. And it's close to the Kenwood. Both of these actually are close to the Kenwood. The Kenwood is the best, but these are perfectly adequate. But being IP54, being a very heavy-duty build, good solid cord, excellent switch work, everything on this just gives me a sense of confidence, and it feels great. So I'm happy with this. Now let's talk about pricing. I mentioned the pricing on the Baofengs. I mentioned the pricing on the Kenwood. AnyTone mic is 29 bucks, but here comes the thing that should make you smile. This retails on Amazon right now for $19.95. It's a $20 piece of kit that if you have a K-plug type radio, I'm going to recommend this one hands down. Across the board, this is the best of the breed. Now, I did have somebody after one of my nets recently tell me he has a Commountain mic that he bought, and he had a problem with it in that when he put the earpiece in, it still was passing audio through the speaker. Now, I tested mine and it didn't do that. Occasionally with any product, you're going to get a lemon or something that was made at 4:45 p.m. on Friday. That may be the case. I'm not totally sure on that. It's the only example I've heard of it, and I didn't see anybody talking about that in the reviews for this so far. That's the only only negative I've heard on this one. A lot of people report kind of the same thing, the same conclusions I've found, that this thing, it sounds excellent in both directions. It does have, as far as speaker mics go, it does have kind of an unusual feel to it that I sort of like. this section right here, because it is so built up, it actually fits very nicely in the hand and gives you, because some speaker mics, because of their size, you tend to choke up a lot. Now here, Kenwood did the right thing, and they put that microphone opening there. But I've had problems holding, for instance, the AnyTone. Your hand or your finger can go over the top of the microphone opening, which is fairly small here. Let's see if that's a problem. The old Commountain was the same way. Over here, we've kind of got the same situation going here. However, you have a tendency when you grab this to grab it by the base right here, and it holds nicely in the hand and leaves this whole area open. It's a silly little thing, but I sort of like it. I know I'm probably going on a little too long on this microphone, but I'm happy with it. In $19.95, this represents a good, solid value. And I'll just clear this out. And coupled with an audio tube earpiece, this is an excellent piece of kit for your radio, whether it be a Baofeng UV5R or an Ocean KG935. In fact, this particular speaker mic lives with this radio now. This is the one for that. Now, I'll add another thing in, and this is going to reveal itself down the road. Commountain doesn't just make speaker mics for K-plugs. They make speaker mics for ICOMs. They make speaker mics for Motorola connections. They make speaker mics for the Motorola IP67 connection. So we'll be coming back and talking about Commountain in relation to those other radios later. They also make speaker mics, or they used to. I imagine they'll do the same thing again, because I have Commountain speaker mics of this variety for all of my Yaesu radios as well. So if that's the case, I may end up with another box of 12 or 15 Commountain mics moving down the road. So more on that later as we test different types of radios. But with that, I'll go ahead and bring it to an end for this portion. And following right after this, you can actually see the audio reports for getting to the end, and my brain has died on me. So you can see a signal report on send and receive with these. So stay tuned for that in just a second. With that, we'll go ahead and transition to that right now.
Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Baofeng factory speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Commountain speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Kenwood KMC 45 Delta speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. AnyTone factory speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Baofeng factory speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Commountain speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. Kenwood KMC 45 Delta speaker mic. Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee testing. AnyTone speaker mic.
Okay, well, those were the results. You can see how some sounded a little bit better than others, and some sent a little bit better than others. So with that, I will bring this to a close. Thank you for watching and or listening. And again, just as a reminder, SpectreGear.com is my day job. So if you're looking for any slings or magazine pouches or pouches for your radio, please visit us at SpectreGear.com. With that, I'll say thank you very much for watching and or listening. This is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee in Visalia, California. Have a wonderful day.